Tommy. Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Fullerton. We are a loving spiritual community empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. Good morning and God morning to you all. I am Beverley Brezden, practitioner and your host. We are delighted that you have joined us this morning and love the good news that you are all doing well and keeping safe. Keep on keeping on, dear ones. Now let us gently go within to that sacred place of stillness, wherein lies the presence of God. God is the infinite power and intelligence that binds us together in inseparable bonds of love, peace, joy, freedom, order, and harmony. Spirit speaks in the gentle falling of a leaf from a tree. Spirit speaks in every blade of grass and every flower that blooms and doesn't bloom. Spirit speaks in the desert sky filled with countless stars. Spirit speaks in the beauty of billowy white clouds against a bright blue sky. Spirit speaks in the peacefulness of a morning sunrise and the glory of an evening sunset. Spirit speaks through the eyes and laughter of a child. Spirit speaks through the community and love of like-minded souls gathering to make the world a better place. Spirit speaks in appreciation and gratitude, and I am so blessed to know Spirit communicates in such countless ways eternally. Thank you, Spirit. And now it is with gratitude and joy that I bless each one who has given of their time and talent to make this service a joyful celebration of oneness, wisdom, peace, and love. I bless Reverend Bill for his talk titled, "Are We There Yet?" I'm sure it will be inspiring and there might be a little comedy too. I bless Tommy for his beautiful music, his beautiful voice, and for all the creativity and time he puts into creating our visuals on the screen. I bless Tomoko for her patience and excellent management skills. Each board member for their wisdom and leadership, the practitioners for their healing prayers, and you, each and every congregant, for your loyalty, your love, and your financial support. We love you, and so it is.
Need to be still and let God love me. I need to be still and let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still. God love me.
Our words of wisdom for today are from Alive with Spirit, a book by Reverend Linda McNamara, who actually was a minister here in Fullerton many years ago. In the foreword of the book, she writes, "When you live from your deepest values, you discover meaning in your life and find comfort in all aspects of being, and your life becomes a continuing adventure. I have found that as I combine full personal responsibility for my life with a deep awareness of the presence of Spirit as my guide, I live with a lighter and freer heart. And so it is for you too," she says. The reading I have chosen from the book is titled, Being the Global Heart of Peace, and it begins with a quote from the 14th Dalai Lama. When we have inner peace, we can be at peace with those around us. It would be wonderful if everyone around the globe had a comfortable place to sleep and enough food to eat. It would be wonderful if everyone had medical attention when needed, a safe place to raise children, and have shelter from the storms of life. Such a world is possible, and it begins right here with you and me. It begins with what we think, what we believe, what we feel, and what we say and we do. Because we are one in consciousness with spiritual reality, you and I have an effect on the way the world is today and on what it can become. If we want our world to change globally or locally, we have to turn to the non-material realm of consciousness. And we need to go within for guidance. And God is waiting for us. As we establish peace within our hearts and minds, we act peacefully in all the moments of our personal lives. And as more and more lives are lived with serenity and compassion, it makes a difference. And peace and love spreads around the globe. When we empty our minds of the divisive beliefs of separation and exclusivity that created the world's sufferings and challenges, and replace them with the knowledge and truth that we are all one life and one consciousness made in the image and likeness of the divine, change for the better begins. It is from this sacred unity of compassion and love that we make personal choices that create a world that experiences a global heart of peace. And now let's take these beautiful words into prayer. Today I celebrate the spiritual life within all people, all races, all religions, all ages, all diversity. Serenity radiates forth from deep within my being, and I hold the world in thoughts of love, compassion, and peace. My consciousness is part of the global heart of peace, and my mind, hands, and feet joyfully do the work. And so it is, and all is well. Namaste.
I send my love over the mountain. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heaven. It returns to me. I send my joy over the mountain. I send my joy over the sea. I send my joy into the heavens. And it returns to me. It returns to me.
Thank you, Tommy Cosentino. Yes. What a beautiful rendition of that song. Wow. So good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Reverend Bill Salisbury. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. So continuing with our theme, summer, because it is, the title of today's talk, remember last week we had something about spiritual vacation. So the title of today's talk is, Are We There Yet? If you have ever been on a road trip with a child or children, one of the mantras you hear, of the main, probably the big three, in no particular order, but I have to go to the bathroom, I'm bored, are we there yet? So the question in my mind is, aren't we on a trip of sorts? Aren't we on this, not a vacation, but we're heading for that destination, right? We all have somewhere locked in our minds, or right out here on our sleeves, but somewhere, we have this idea of where we'd like to be, what we'd like to be, who we'd like to be, how we'd like to be. And spiritually, if we got to kind of digging around, we'd find out that where, who, what, how, why, all of it comes to this. We would like to be totally and completely aware. Actually, that's where we want to be, right? That's our destination. It's total and complete awareness. Awareness of our spiritual being. Awareness of our place in spirit, of our place in God, of our place in this thing called life. So, if somebody came up to you and said, I am God, well, you might have any number of different reactions, but none of them is probably going to be, well, of course you are, I recognize that right away. And you know, we actually heard a talk not long ago from a person who said just exactly that. You are God, you are God, you are God. And I'm thinking, I understand what you're saying, because we are made in the image and likeness of God, the spiritual image and likeness of God. We are the love that God is. We are the peace that God is. We are the joy, the happiness, the kindness that God is. We're the acceptance and the understanding that God is. And when necessary, we are the forgiveness that God is. And always, 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 we are the gratitude. We're just grateful for knowing this, aren't we, about ourselves? So I get what that meant, but I also get this. I mean, we always talk about language, and in our language, if we say, you are that, it means it should mean exactly that. Okay, you are God. Well, wait a minute. If you are God, change the planets for me. If you are God, raise the dead, walk on water, do all those things that I expect God can do. And guess what? I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to make me happy about that. So rather than saying, you are God, I am God, why wouldn't we just say, God has become me. God has become you. Because that is the living truth, right? God has become each one of us. So we say we're expressions of God. And sometimes I think we say that kind of as a lip service sort of thing, without really putting the full meaning and the full brunt of the truth behind that. So we are expressions of God, But it strikes closer to home for me if I say God has become me. So can God become me and become you and you and you and you and everybody and everything? Sure. We've talked often about identification, what we identify with. And we also know that, well, we can identify as many, 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 many things, can't we? We identify as so many things in our life, in this human existence. And that's fine. We have the right to. We have the need to, because we do all of those things and we are all of those things. Now, our true identity, our identity in spirit, is one and the same, unchanging forever and always. I mean, even death does not interrupt who we are, our identity. I mean, that can be interrupted by nothing at any time, because we are eternally and infinitely expressions of God. Whether we are expressing exactly this way or in some different fashion. So we can have, each of us, lots of different kinds of identities. Why can't God? Why can't God become as many things as God wants to? Well, the answer is, of course, it's possible. Oh, there's only one power, one presence. There's only one life force, one prana, if you will, from which all things come. And this life force can become a multitude, an infinity of different things. And that's what we see as we look around us. That's exactly what's going on. So, I'm going to agree with that guy that I heard, that God, I am not God, because I can't do all of the things that God can do. I am not the entirety of God, but God is the entirety of me. Now, it's true, I've got this little thing called volition, choice, will. I can tend to ignore that, or I can downplay it, or I can just kind of use it sometimes and not at all times. But the fact of the matter is, the entirety of me is made up of God. So, when I'm heading for that destination of complete awareness in who I am and what I am, every once in a while I might be like that child in the back seat. We call it introspection, but that form of introspection is, am I there yet? Have I arrived? How will we know when we've arrived? Well, I think the manner in which we know that we are close to arriving, I used to tell my kids, 5 kids in the back of the van, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And I would always say, well, we're almost halfway. So about an hour later, when they asked the same thing, and I gave them the same answer, they'd say, wait a minute. You said that a long time ago. And I'd just say, yeah, well, we're a little closer to being almost halfway than we were then, because we've been moving in that direction. We may not get there in our human consciousness knowingly while we're traveling this road. But we have to know that that's okay. Because this is a little confusing sometimes, but we're already there. We're at our destination. We're just wanting more awareness of that as we go. And Beverley, thank you for that reading from Linda McNamara, talking about the peace, and the tranquility and the way that works in our world. Thich Nhat Hanh also, he used to use the example of the small boat being out on the ocean. So, Thich Nhat Hanh from Vietnam, and there were people leaving there in droves by the hundreds and thousands, getting away from the warring factions in that country because it just wasn't safe for people. And they would load up in these boats, and not boats like we sometimes think of, but if you just imagine a rowboat, but about 4 or 5 or 6 times the size of a regular rowboat with a kind of a deep bottom, and as many people in that boat as you could get. Absolutely stuffed full of people with just a few supplies and enough to get them somewhere, anywhere away from where they were, away from the danger. And he'd say, sometimes these boats get out in the ocean, they get away from land and they get stormy seas, and these little boats are at risk. They're in peril. Little boats, big wave, lots of people loading down this boat. It would be very, very easy, and in fact, most of the time, they were just, during a storm, living in panic for fear of their lives. And he said, if one person on that boat could exhibit calmness, tranquility, okayness, that person, he or she, would make it such that everybody else could look and see how calm he or she was, and that would calm them. Just a facial expression, a word of confidence, that would cause everybody on the boat to settle down and relax and stop bouncing around making things worse. And eventually, if everybody just cooperated in that manner, chances were very good that they were going to be okay. And sometimes, isn't our world kind of like that? Sometimes aren't things so confusing and so disruptive, and so many things seeming that can go against us like that? We just need somebody that we can look at and know from their very expression that we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And we have people like that in this world, and we have had them throughout history. And here's one thing. Think back of all the serious dilemmas and the problems and the, oh my gods, what's going to happen next, that have happened in the history of this planet. How many of those things are still with us? They don't last. Because one thing about this planet and all the worldly conditions and situations and events, they're all impermanent. They're all coming and going. So we're looking for the awareness of our place in spirituality. And why would we look for that? What do we want from that? Why do we do that? Because we're looking for what? We're looking for the peace that we are by divine birthright to come to the fore. We're looking for that expression that tells us everything's okay. We're looking for that peace, and of course with peace comes joy, happiness, love. We can't find or get any of that from an impermanent structure. For example, my body. I can't get that from anything bodily. If I want those feelings, if I want that security, if I want that rootedness in everything is okay, and the universe is conspiring for my good, and there's nothing but love and joy and happiness for me, I have to go somewhere other than right here to get that. I have to know that that is the province of that self within me that is my divine self. Buddhists talk about suffering. So do we. Who doesn't talk about suffering? You ever had cause for suffering? Yeah. So, who suffers? What suffers? Who suffers is that small human self that is me, that is you, that egoic self. And don't misunderstand, we hear all the time about, oh, that's just your ego. Yeah, we got to get rid of the ego. Folks, we can't get rid of the ego. If we get rid of the ego, we're not here anymore. It's the ego that makes up our humanness. It's our ego that keeps us from walking off a cliff or being eaten by a buffalo or being run over by a Mack truck. So we have to have that. But that's what suffers. However, remember the continuum? Our humanity or divinity? Somewhere along that continuum, that small self ceases. The big self, capital S, goes on forever and for always. The small self ceases. So we know that the suffering we are going through is because we are currently entrenched in the small self and its ways. We're currently entrenched in the little me. I don't want to make this sound easy, because it's not. But we don't have to be there. We can transcend that and leave it all behind and get off into our eternal self, into our divinity, and we can actually be there and look at this small self suffering and understand that's the way of the world. That is the way of the world. Sure, do we have happy times, great times? Yes, that's the way of the world also. But the not so good times, that's part of this living. But we can rise above that when we get into that acceptance of and realization of our divinity and remembering that God has become me. I can then look down at that smaller me and say, well, sure glad that's not going to last. And all of the accoutrements of suffering don't amount to anything. Because that's not really mine. That's happening here, but that's not happening to me, to this me, and it's not going to happen to me. As long as I understand that I am what God has become, and I don't have to identify with anything less than that. Now, are we there yet? Well, we're almost halfway there. At any given time, at any time when something is not going the way we think it should spiritually, are we there yet? Well, yes. Yes, we are, as long as we understand that we are. And as long as we refuse to accept that we are not. Spiritual results are measured by what? By peace, right? The feeling within. How do we know when we're exhibiting our best spirituality? We just feel it. We just feel it. We've heard the term bulletproof. Come on. We are. When we are ensconced in our divinity and we act from that, and we bring that to bear every time something untoward happens to us humanly, and again, it's going to always happen to us. Remember the roller coaster? That's what we're on here on this plane. We're on a roller coaster ride. Sometimes we're really great, sometimes we're not. But the fact is, we have to understand that the really great and the really not are both impermanent situations. and we can't dwell on them. And in fact, I know sometimes it's hard to think, I'm feeling so great right now, everything's going my way. I just got to realize that's not the truth of me. And it's not. The truth of me is that from this high right here, I'm so far above that in my divinity. I'm looking down on that. And that's hard to see when we're thinking from our humanness. And again, it's not easy, remember? Why do we think from our humanness? Because we're human. That's what we do. That's what we've done all our lives. But we do have to realize that we don't have to stay there. Through the good and the bad, our divinity is always so much better. So our awareness of that is what saves the day for us. And that's just a matter of perspective. Isn't it? We can always go to that perspective. There's a story about the teenage boy out in the front yard shooting hoops, playing basketball, like kids do, bouncing around, running around, jumping up and down. And he loses a contact lens. And he looks around a little bit for it and he can't find it. Now imagine a teenage boy looking around for a contact lens. You got that picture in your mind, right? So he goes in the house and he tells Mom what happened. He said, I've looked everywhere, I just can't find it. Well, Mom walks out, comes back in about 2 minutes. She's got his contact lens. She says, here, clean this off, put it back in your eye. He says, wow, how did you do that? I looked everywhere. She said, we weren't looking for the same thing. You were looking for a little round piece of see-through plastic. I was looking for $300. This is all in our perspective. It's what we're looking for. If we're looking for more of the same, we're going to get, guess what? More of the same. If we're looking to rise above that and take our rightful place in peace, love, joy, beauty, happiness, community, that singleness of purpose, that's when we have arrived. And we no longer have to ask, are we there yet? So let's just take a moment and know this truth. Through all things, we are born and made in the spiritual image and likeness of God. That one power, that one presence from which all things come, within which all things live and move and have their being, and to which all things in awareness return. We set aside all cravings for things other than this awareness. We set aside fear about future uncertainty, because when we are forever, every moment ensconced in this awareness of who we are in spirit, in life, in God, then we know the future takes care of itself. It has to unfold exactly the way we present it. And we present it in this very moment. We don't let our five senses take precedence over our divinity. We don't let things of the world usurp our rights as divine beings, as spiritual beings having this human experience. And we know that everything we could ever hope for, everything we could ever desire or want, is already here. It's already within us. It's for us. It is us. because God has become us. And we can live that life simply by declaring it to be true and our awareness of it taking precedence over all other things. Knowing this is the case, I just give great thanks. I give great thanks for this and so much more. All the things I am provided by being God appearing as me. So I just release this word with a heart full of gratitude, knowing that it is so and knowing that I'm so grateful for it. I let it go, I let it be, and together we say, so it is. On behalf of the Board of Trustees and the Practitioner Corps and everything that makes this a community, thank you for your continued support. We really, really appreciate it. Knowing that congregants can send their gifts, their tithes, their offerings directly to us or go online to the website and donate, or lo and behold, run it by in person. Visit with Tomoko Rosas. She'll be happy to thank you again. So seriously, thank you for your support. It's your continued support that allows us to keep on doing the good things in the world that this Center for Spiritual Living does. Thanks. Tommy Cousin Tino. So, just a reminder that our practitioners are always here, unavailable. Not always here, always available, sometimes here. So, if you have anything in the world that you'd like to talk about, you know, even if it is just to ask, are we there yet? Get a hold of one of us. Our numbers are easy to find. They're on the website. You can call the office, and we're ready to talk with you, pray with you, and spend some time with you. So let's just know this right now, as a group. Something wonderful is happening to me, through me, right now. It is this thing called life. It is this thing called love. And it is this thing called the awareness of knowing my place and my divinity in this world. It's my awareness of knowing that God has become me. I feel it. I know it. I believe it. I accept it. And so it is.